All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Gerst. I'm a research scientist at the National Phenology Network, and I'm also coordinating the prioritization and development of our data products, both currently in development and planned. And so I'm going to switch gears a little bit for this session and tell you a little bit about those data products that we have on the plan. So for those of you that were at Jake Weltzin, our executive director's talk yesterday, he showed this slide explaining the capacity of the National Phenology Network. We start down there with standardized protocols that we provide for people to collect ground observations of phenology on individuals at sites. Those protocols feed into data incoming into our online observation program, Nature's Notebook. All that data goes into what we call the National Phenology Database. And, whoops, I went the wrong way, okay. And the data from the National Phenology Database is summarized and derived into a series of data products. So for today's talk, I'm going to give you a summary of those phenology data product suites that we've identified as being high priority for the data user community. I'm going to tell you about our recently released data output tool where we output raw and summarized customized phenometric data. Tell you a little bit about our phenology products in development and our next steps, which include releasing a data product catalog and launching a series of data product working groups. So this very complicated, messy schemata sort of summarizes what we're calling data product suites. Everything in black is data derived from the National Phenology Database, whereas the blue data sets are ancillary data sets used to make our data products. Phenology status data is the backbone of all of our data. It's status data, presence or absence of phenophase activity on individual organisms. That data gets converted into what we're calling phenometrics, so onset, end, duration, and peak of individual sites, species, and regions, which can also be displayed in phenological calendars or in visualizations on maps. We're hoping in the near future to be producing integrated data sets that combines phenometric data with remotely sensed data, including phenocam data, remote sense products, and climate data. Ultimately, we're hoping to produce a database of phenoclimatic models that combines climate data and phenometrics, as well as databases of species sensitivities to various climate drivers. And these climate models get fed into creating gridded hindcast and forecast maps that can be also visualized and provided. And ultimately, our goal is to provide short-term forecasts on the order of 10 days and 2 to 3 months. Short-term phenology forecasts based on meteorological data and our phenoclimatic models. So this newly released data output tool, it comes from, the URL for it is below, and you can get both raw status data, so presence and absence of phenophase activity on individuals, or summarized data, which we're also calling phenometric data. This data includes both data collected from our Nature's Notebook program, so includes data on hundreds of species across the continental US since 2009, as well as a historical lilac and honeysuckle data set from 1955. Data downloads from this tool can be customized to include either raw or summarized in situ ground-based observational data. You can customize by species, by phenophase. You can draw bounding boxes to select your regions of interest or select various states. You can customize by year or season of interest, partner organizations such as a university that's collecting data, or the National Park Service, or a particular wildlife refuge of interest. There's also an option to include quality control flagging and include metadata and descriptions of field names and information about sites, species, and observers. For those of you not familiar with the structure of our raw data or what we ask observers of our Nature's Notebook program to collect, I'll just sort of illustrate it here with this picture. If someone saw this particular plant and butterfly on a given day, they'd be asked a series of questions such as, do you see flowers, do you see fruit? And so someone would enter data about the presence and absence of phenophase activity. So they might say, Yes, I see flowers. No, I do not see fruit. Yes, I see this butterfly feeding, but no, I do not see it laying eggs. And so this raw status data gives you a series of positive or negative occurrence values for a given phenophase on a given individual on a particular day. But there's no consistent observation frequency in the database due to the fact that it's many individuals and groups and organizations collecting and contributing data to the National Phenology Database. So we can summarize this raw status data and derive phenometrics, which we've found to be a more practical data type for most data users and applications. Here you're seeing sort of a theoretical phenology calendar. The species A, B, and C along the axis could also be individuals or sites. And then you have day of year on the x-axis, just showing the general period of interest. So we take our raw data and we derive from that onset and duration for individuals, and then eventually we'll be providing this information at the site and regional level as well. In addition, we provide the information about when the last no observation happened before the series of yeses and the last no observation after the series of yeses. So the number of days between the no and yes records can allow data users to filter their summarized data and increase the certainty in which onset or end date occurred. We're also launching a series of quality control measures on that raw and summarized data. Currently, we've already begun to correct implausible latitude, longitude, and elevations. We flag conflicting status records, so if multiple individuals or a single individual report conflicting phenophase records on a given day, we'll flag that and output it with the data. In the future, we'll be flagging species out of range and intensity values that don't advance in the expected progression. So in addition to the status data, we have observers collecting data on the magnitude in which they see phenological activity happening. We'll also be doing plausibility assessments of phenophase activity based on prior records and flagging phenophases that are out of order for a limited set of species in temperate climates for which we have more certainty about the order in which those phenophases will progress. This is the interface of our Nature's Notebook coming very soon based on that phenometric summarized data will be individual phenology calendars on observers, what we're calling their observation decks. So they can see the period of activity for their own individual plants and animals they're observing at their own sites. We'll also be extending this in the next year to site-level phenology calendars and regional-level phenology calendars. There's lots of applications to phenology calendars, such as planning the timing of management processes like managing invasive species, or for parks and refuges to share the timing of flowers or the timing of bird activity in a location. We're also in the process of developing methods to output peak phenometrics along with our summarized data. And so in an ideal world, you'd have a clear peak with a normal distribution, but we're learning that it can be a lot more complicated depending on the species and their life history. So you can have species that are equally active throughout the phenophase, have many peaks within active periods, or many periods of activity throughout the year. So it's complex, but we are working on the methods now and hope to output this data along with the summarized data in the next year. In addition, we'll be outputting regional phenometrics in the future. So start and end of growing season, lumping species functional types for things like ecoregions, neon domains, fish and wildlife refuges, et cetera. And so this is a valuable resource for many of our partners and for modelers alike. In addition, as I talked about in that slide, one of our main goals is to produce phenoclimatic models from the data in the National Phenology Database. This is a image of the gridded spring index. The spring index was developed by Mark Schwartz based on those historic lilac observations and predicts the onset of spring throughout the continental US. It's recently been gridded by Toby Alt. And we're using this model as a way to show how we can do projections into the future and different climate change scenarios, as well as hindcast maps. And so, as I said earlier, ultimately we would like to have a database of these phenoclimatic models based on ground observations for people to work with. Our next steps include coming out with a data product catalog. We've been working really hard to put together this document that describes in detail all of the products and subproducts and data product suites that we envision doing. Some of them we're doing in-house, but many of them we're going to be relying on the Phenology data user community to work with us and develop. And this is going to be available in the next few months, and we're going to be reaching out to you all, the data user community, for feedback and ideas and interest. We'll also be launching a series of data product working groups. So at the National Coordinating Office, we're very small. We have capacity to organize, and we'll be really reaching out more to the phenology community of practice in the next year. Phenology data users to put together these data product working groups. For example, bringing together people working on phenoclimatic models, integrating data sets, and doing data model fusion. And with that, I can take some questions. This is our data product team based at the National Coordinating Office, and my contact information there if anyone wants to reach out afterwards to share ideas and feedback.
Any questions? Maybe I can ask you a question.
Sure.
Can you explain a little more about the spring index?
Oh, what in particular?
Is there a difference between plant function type or?
So it's all based on the historic lilac observations. So it's sort of a metric of onset of spring based on those metrics.
Okay.
But
so
I don't know.
Empirical based or?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Mark wants to answer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for coming here for the productive afternoon. All right. Thank you. Thanks.